Hello and welcome to the Bitcoin Review Podcast, the podcast where we fail at boringly reading the latest release notes and discuss project updates. So we have Matt and Justin again on the show. Really, it's just Justin. We have the ghost of Matt here. He's going to be replaced by a computer, the booze. Well, I guess the next stop really is for us to have Marty pre-record the show notes. And then we play Marty doing the show notes and we talk about
and we'll just heckle him.
That's right. I mean, that would be quite perfect. So yeah, thanks for coming again, guys. This should be fun. It's quite the long list. Do you guys have a good day so far?
Absolutely.
It's been a good Monday.
So people that can't see because there's no video, Justin has taken over Marty's podcast studio.
Yeah, it's over for Marty Bent. Put the word out. He's run off to New Jersey or wherever the hell he went. Just fled Texas. Couldn't handle the heat. Now I got his podcast studio, and yeah, it's over.
Maybe he moved to California. It's going to be very compatible lifestyle.
Yeah, nobody knows.
Right. All right, guys. Let's enter the boring list. So
MBK,
starting
are you
off,
be a BitBlock boom this week.
I love how Marty Matt just goes right in there. No, I'm not gonna make it. I am not making to conferences until probably mid-late October.
Well, Justin, I'll see you tomorrow then. I won't see him today. BitBlock boom's gonna be fucking sick this year. I'm pretty excited.
Are you guys ready for the list, or are we gonna just keep this not boring and fail every time?
Oh, I've been ready for the list for 3 weeks now? 4 weeks? How many weeks have I been waiting for the list?
I mean, this list is just gonna keep on getting too long.
I've been begging for it. The list.
Okay, so then let's give it to Justin. Sparrow 1.6.6. That was a good strong start there. Authentication via auth47 and LN URLs. Improved performance for very deep wallets. Change from notification TXs in spent last. Copy labels from deposit UTXOs into bed bank. Any comments, concerns?
These are extremely detailed release notes. Craig has been very busy.
I know, I've asked, I think once for him to have a summary, but no, we get the deep ones. All right, JoininBox version 0.7.0. New automatically generated SD card image for Raspberry Pi 4 and 3. Connect to fully noded with QR code to the JoinMarket API. Add custom labels to addresses. Add joinmarket.api.services.tools. I have comments. Do you guys?
You go first.
Where do I find the list?
Oh, Matt. You would never go this unprepared to the rabbit hole recap.
There's no preparation for rabbit hole recap.
No, trust me, it shows.
I just wanted to say that Craig Raw is an absolute legend, and Sparrow Wallet, I'm just so grateful we have Sparrow Wallet. It's just such a fantastic fucking wallet.
I sent on Signal the show notes.
Thank you. Why don't you have them linked at bitcoin.review?
We will.
Yeah. Okay.
This is a commit to the bitcoin.review markdown file that then gets served as the website. We're professionals here, Matt.
Yeah, so if you want to open any of these links, you have to copy and paste. The links don't work yet because Rodolfo hasn't merged the pull request yet, but the list, yeah.
Very convenient.
Yeah, it's great. So on JoininBox, there's no programming language here. It's just shell scripts for this UI for JoinMarket.
Which is very useful and really sort of just ties things together because, JoinMarket is the only sort of solution that we have that we know that people are not going to go to jail.
So JoininBox has been around for a minute. The lead maintainer is OpenOms. and it's primarily used via the Raspiblitz project. So if you have Raspiblitz, you basically just press install, and it's very, very straightforward to use.
That's right. I think so. This is still quite nerdy for people listening, wanting to try Join Market. I think it's pretty much as nerdy as it gets. However, if you're a dev out there who can do UI, who can build something interesting, Join Markets needs some love. I think Gigi has some
Yes.
a bounty for Join Markets UI, right?
No. So HRF has a bounty for Join Market UI. It's about a half a Bitcoin.
Okay.
Gigi is leading basically the main project that seeks to win that bounty, and that's Jam. Forget what Jam stands for, but essentially it's a Join Market web UI, so you can run it on like Umbrel or Raspiblitz or something like that, and just open it up in your browser, use it with your own node really easily.
Yeah, I haven't tried that one yet, but it did look promising from the specs I saw online. That was the GG one that I knew of. And for people that don't know, the cool thing about Join Markets is that Join Markets does not have a centralized coordinator. It's part of the reason why I like it so much. It's just a market. People put out an offer to mix their coins with yours, and you choose to pay their fee or not, or pick another offer from a market maker.
Yeah, so anyone could be a maker and Join Market, and they basically put up this much Bitcoin. They say it's available for CoinJoin. This is the fee you have to pay me, and then if you want to use that offer, then you open up Join Market as a taker and you use it. And then they have like different automated things that go through them and switch between makers and whatnot. So one of the biggest trade-offs with that is, you have robust. It's a robust system that doesn't have central points of failure, but in return, you lack convenience. And the main lack of convenience there historically has been you have to use your own node with it, and the UI. So to make the node part easier, you bundle it with node projects. And then to make the UI part easier, you provide a web UI where it's just point and click. And that Jam tries to accomplish both of those elements.
Have anyone looked into using the Noster protocol to create a Join Market coordinator? I could see how that would work, because right now you could use IRC. There's a few ways to coordinate Join Markets.
Right now they use IRC, which is like not ideal.
Yeah, but well, at least the cool thing about IRC is that anyone can connect to that sort of quite privately.
There was a CoinJoin implementation with Nostr recently that someone posted a gist like 2 months ago, and there's a slightly more polished one from like a pretty well-known Bitcoin developer. I don't know how this thing has. It's called Joinster. If you just look on Twitter, for example.
All right. So Electrum 4.3.0. This version introduces a set of UI modifications, simplify the use of Lightning, the idea of abstract payments, layer, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, I am not a fan of Electrum Lightning. I really wish they had not included that on Electrum. I actually have many things to bitch about Electrum recently. Do you guys want to start before I go on my rant?
Go for it.
Go for it.
So the new UI UX really on Electrum now requires 50,000 more clicks to just sign a transaction. I don't understand why they create that finalized screen. Probably because of Lightning stuff. As usual, why can't we just keep things separate? The Lightning stuff and the Electrum stuff for Bitcoin. And it's very brutal. Yeah. Anyways, so that's my rant.
I mean, look, I appreciate the Electrum team because they've been around forever, and I used to heavily rely on their project. But at this point, I just don't know why you wouldn't just use Sparrow.
Oh, I have many reasons, but I am an absolute. The reason why I'm so passionately pissed at Electrum is because I'm passionately fan of Electrum. I love Electrum. I use Electrum.
So you still use Electrum primarily?
Of course, it's the devil I know. right? And I know the amount of eyes that are on it. It's a, it's a fairly well reviewed project with a lot of user base, and I think it serves a huge purpose. We can't end up with just one wallet; it would be terrible.
Well, yeah, obviously.
So I really want Electrum to stop with the Lightning stuff and sort of focus on Bitcoin.
But it's really the opposite, right? The opposite is what was happening is if you talked about power user wallets, we basically just had Electrum.
No, you could have used Bitcoin Core with RPC commands for power users.
Yeah, of course you can use Bitcoin Core.
Yeah, no, but like that's kind of how I see the competition, and it's kind of funny because that's how the project started, was literal competition for Bitcoin Core, because Bitcoin Core wallet was unusable way back. It's still unusable. And yeah, I mean like Spectre desktop, I don't know where that's going.
No, but I mean, look, if you look 2 years ago and you wanted to use a desktop software wallet, with, let's say, with your hardware signers, for instance, if you had hardware wallets,
Hmm.
you're basically your 2 choices were Electrum and maybe, like, Bitcoin Core. Now, over those last 2 years, we've added Spectre to it, we've added Wasabi to it, and we've added Sparrow to it.
Yeah, but not really, right? Because Wasabi now does chain analytics and everybody hates it.
Right, correct.
Sparrow really does not have enough devs or time in the market.
Well, you gotta start somewhere.
No, listen, I absolutely love Craig, right? Like it's this is not a criticism of Craig or the project. It's just sort of like a factor of the time in the market and sort of like install base size, right? So like when you're talking about like, putting all your like doing very large transactions on a computer, you kind of really want the project to have, time in the market, like a lot of people who don't necessarily like it use it to also audit it. It's just a function of market size and time. I think you'll get there. It's already getting there. It's a fantastic project, but it's also Java, which has a lot less people in Bitcoin space looking at as well.
Nunchuk too.
Yeah, so Nunchuk is fantastic, but also still sort of not quite there in time in the market, install base, and reviews. We need people using it so that they do get there, and we want them to get there.
And then I guess on mobile, and I think they have a Mac app, is Blue Wallet too.
But isn't Blue Wallet sold to some exchange and nobody's developing much anymore? I don't see much going on.
Nuno responded to one of my tweets saying that that deal didn't happen.
Maybe are the devs like busy with other stuff then? Because like the project seems sort of like semi-abandoned, right? They just keep up with updates for OS.
I mean, my sources kept telling me they got sold and like had pretty concrete like concrete proof of it, but he said they didn't publicly, so I have no idea.
We're not gonna know, and in all honesty, it shouldn't matter, right?
Right, it's a false project.
No, I mean it's just it shouldn't matter, right? If the code is good, and it's a shame that because of the way app stores work and stuff, you can't just sideload and whatever on iOS. But ideally, it shouldn't matter, right? People can review the code, people can build a project, people can test, and it shouldn't matter.
Well, I mean, even with the App Store thing, Blue Wallet is MIT,
Hmm.
so presumably, like, we could get off this podcast, just rip a direct copy of it, and put it on the App Store and call it, Aqua Wallet or something.
Yep. Well, I mean, I am a huge sort of Blue Wallet fan. To when people ask me which wallets they should use as like a simple single sig iOS wallet, but progressively I've been sort of switching to tell people I send them to either Nunchuk or Moon Wallet. Although Moon Wallet I can't send people to because they don't use seeds, which drives me absolute bonkers. Um, I can't in the right mind send anybody to a wallet that doesn't use seeds.
Yeah, I mean, that's a difficult one with Moon, right? Because it's like the ultimate beginner's wallet, but you kind of set them up in the wrong trajectory because it doesn't have seeds.
Great, and I appreciate people wanting to make an encrypted backup into the iCloud for those kinds of wallets, which is fair. It's a very reasonable way of handling backups, but it should still be seed based, because then you're compatible with every other wallet that can recover those funds.
My understanding is it's because they use a multi-sig.
But it still doesn't matter. You can still use the seed as the source of entropy.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be recoverable in other wallets. That point is off, is what I mean.
I don't. Well, right. They use a proprietary sort of like non-spec version of a multisig script. Is that why?
I think it's just 2 of 2.
If it's two or
Does Green give
two,
you a seed?
yes, but Green uses non-standard multisig too, unless you use their new version of Green now allows you to create single sig and standard multisigs. But if I remember right, their basic automatic default, their 2 of 2 thing is non-standard. There's recovery scripts out there and stuff, but I ideally I don't want to send users to any wallet that needs some custom script that nobody else uses, right? That's the beauty of BIP39 if used.
Yeah, but I don't think Moon competes. Like, it's weird that Moon even came up in this conversation, right? Because, we were talking about specifically on-chain wallets and specifically within that savings wallets or wallets that you use to interact with your savings. While Moon, on the other hand, to me is, an easy way for people to participate in Lightning on mobile, with very little user friction. And in that situation, it's really competing against like Wallet of Satoshi and Blue Wallet's custodial Lightning wallet, and both those are custodial Lightning wallets. So let alone the backup method, I mean, you don't even have your keys.
This is the problem though. People are not going to download more than one wallet and they shouldn't, right? Especially the people we're talking about here, right? The person who is just going to have some bucks to spend on Lightning or some bucks to spend on chain. They're going to want a single wallet, or they might download two wallets if each of them does not do what the other one does in the wrong way. So the problem is, they get Blue Wallet and then they're going to use Blue Wallet for all their stuff, right? So then they're going to end up on custodial Lightning. And then if they use Moon, then they're going to end up using Bitcoin base layer in a way that is not easy to recover. So it kind of sucks. My dream wallet, which I might end up having to do, is I want a phone wallet that does single sig basic. Okay, very basic single sig. And then go use Lightning somewhere else. Or you
Yeah, like with Moon.
right, but why does Moon then do base layer?
Because the whole point of Moon is to keep it as simple as possible. You scan a QR code and it just pays. Like, I don't like this idea that Moon should have like all this different functionality is ridiculous.
Sure, then use a seed so that people can use a metal plate that already works for seeds.
As far as I'm concerned, you don't even need a backup for Moon Wallet. That's just icing on the cake. Like, if you're carrying around like $400, $500, it's a spending wallet.
Yeah, but Matt, like people lose phones, people break
I know, which
phones.
is why they have email password recovery, which for like 99% of people is more intuitive than a seed anyway.
I don't like that. Maybe I just been in this space for too long.
But meanwhile, like right now, my current Moon wallet, not backed up at all.
Yeah, I can't. I just can't because the problem is people are gonna have like $400 in their Moon wallet or $100 in their Moon wallet, right? And then they're gonna forget that they had it, and then 2 years later, Bitcoin's worth 100 times more, and then they go like, "Oh, I had some Bitcoin on that old Moon."
Then we tell them thank you for their service.
I know, but like this was already the experience we used to have with blockchain.info way back then, right? We shouldn't have this experience anymore. Everyone should be able to recover with 12 words minimum their freaking wallet. It shouldn't be that hard. It makes no difference. I can't comprehend why they couldn't use 12 words as the entropy for whatever they're doing.
I just think the complaints are misplaced. I think the complaints are really using Lightning on mobile and easily backing up Lightning things and like easy channel management and all this other stuff. And Moon is kind of
I agree.
dealing with what they have today and giving like a pretty good user experience for people in spite of all of that.
It's fantastic. But why can't they just use 12 words instead of the gibberish? The entropy space is the same. Anyways, we're not going to come up with a solution on this call, but that's the problem.
We should invite Dario on the next Bitcoin review.
Yeah, that could be cool. But then we're going to have to be polite because the person is going to be here who actually does all the work. There's a very big difference between bitching about projects when the people who work on the project are around and when they aren't. So just so everybody knows, we're just bitching, right? I mean, like, really, it's not like we're taking our time going and fixing it or forking it. All right. So Nunchuk 1.9.12, they have some bug fixes and they added Sats card integration. That is the first Sats card integration in the wild. That's pretty cool. I don't know. Have you guys seen the video yet?
I've seen a few videos.
It's pretty neat. You just tap, sweep, boom. Bitcoin's yours.
Can you use it in a multi-sig?
No, you use tap signer on the multisig.
Oh yeah, tap. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. No, the Sats card is just like open dime, like modern.
Yeah, it's a cheaper one.
So now they're both supported on Nunchuk, Sats card and Tap Signer.
That's right. Those guys are beasts, eh? We talked to them just back channel for like 5 minutes. They go and build it.
That's awesome.
Another thing I love about Nunchuk is that there is no dependencies. Like the whole thing is there. All C++, libsac. It's absolutely brilliant. It's a lot less attack surface that way. And also, they're not doing like the JavaScript guys have to do. There's no serializing, deserializing of all the secrets between many libraries. It's very nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. And moving on to Blockstream Green 3.8.6. iOS and Android display firmware wash. No, sorry, firmware hash during Jade firmware update. Log in with BIP39 passphrase. Display receive addresses in the transaction details. Display the net amount without fees. Handle connection failure during wallet discovery. And then on Android, login same. Trezor and Ledger single sig. Faster Jade firmware update. Improved Ledger support.
Does Nunchuk support the MK4's NFC yet?
They're working on it.
So it's a lot different. The flow is a lot different than with Tap Signer.
Yes. So Tap Signer uses message digests, right? It's like a true dumb blind signer for Bitcoin with a pin. Tap Signer doesn't understand PSBTs, none of this stuff, right? The stack is much reduced. While on Cold Card is the opposite. There is no proprietary SPAC. It's just data in and out via NFC. So technically it would be a much faster, but the value add of doing Cold Card NFC is much lower than Tap Signer with a multi-sig on Nunchuk, like collaborative or by yourself.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
One question on Green: Does Green actually do the firmware updates for the Jade like via Bluetooth or something, or how do they do the firmware update? Is it saying like faster Jade firmware update?
I have no clue.
That'd be kind of cool if you could update your firmware with your phone.
That sounds like a terrible idea. Can you imagine? Yeah, because the phone is like essentially like fully owned, right? And now you're gonna take firmwares that you can't sort of verify on hardware that has no security, because Jade doesn't have any security, right? Their security model is very different. So essentially, Jade is using ESP32, and which you cannot defend like at all, right? And what they do is they do a two-factor authentication.
There's no secure element.
No, it's worse than that. So ESP32 is an extremely powerful, cheap, unsecure Chinese platform. Okay. It was designed for you to create essentially like fun things like a block clock, right? Not for you to handle money. However, they came up with this sort of two-factor authentication thing where you use Blockstream servers as the security of the Jade. But, you know, like you're still like holding a device that you can't trust, right? So if you see an address on a screen, you can't trust that. That's part of the model problem that I see with Jade. It's an interesting proposition, and it was a great solution because no other wallet was supporting Liquid at the time. Um, but like, as an actual security solution, I'm not a huge fan.
And presumably it's cheap as fuck.
Yeah, I mean, ESP32, the module itself is very cheap. It's a very powerful platform for the price. It's actually quite incredible. The reason why it's possible to do that is because it's made by a Chinese company that doesn't give a fuck about patents or licensing IP. So they did that, and it has, like, no security at all, for example, right? All these things will save a lot of cost, and you can create these incredible devices that can do a lot. You just can't depend on them. Let's put it this way.
So if someone has a low price point for a signer and they're considering getting a Jade because it has a screen on it versus a tap signer, what would you say to them?
I mean, it's hard to say, right? Because I'm very biased on this, with both the fact that Tap Signer is made by us, and also the way that we prefer our security trade-offs. At least Tap Signer is secure, right? It uses an actual secure element. It doesn't have a screen, so you are depending on the software that gives you the address. Now, at least you know that the integrity of the device is much more secure. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Still a cheap secure element, but in my view, is a much better security trade-off scenario, especially if you're using tap signer and multi-sig.
Couldn't the phone just lie to you and then you tap it?
Yes, but for tap signer, if you're using a multi-sig, you can be the other party or your other device, sort of be your sanity check for that address. It could also be Jade, or it could also be a cold card as the co-signer, right? So you would rely on another party or another device to double check that address. Now, if you're using tap signer as a single signer, the security model is not for you to have your life savings on it. It's for you to just not have your private keys on a phone, right? So you would have your spending wallet, say your $500, $5,000, using the tap signer, just so that is not on a phone. It's just a little bit of a different sort of security trade-off and a place there. While the Jade, in my opinion, gives you a false sense of security by having that screen when the device itself is not secure. But in the same way as the tap signer, you could rely on a third party to be your sanity check for that address. So I see the two actually very similar in terms of security threshold. Um, but one is much cheaper and much more secure itself, but doesn't have a screen. Does that make any sense, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, essentially what it boils down to is if you're using it in a multi-sig, you would need multiple points of failure to be compromised, right? Because you'd have different coordinators for each of the signers anyway.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're all using the same wallet software, right? Which in the case of Nunchuk could be true.
Right, but you might not all be updated, or your individual phone might not be pwned or something.
That's correct.
Even in a situation where it was a 3 of 5 multi-sig and 3 of the signers are different people holding tap signers and Nunchuk, the attack surface becomes way smaller.
Yes. Yes.
Even in that situation, just because there's multiple devices that need to be compromised. I guess you could, yeah, and update.
Yeah, I mean, unless Nunchuk is malicious, right? Like themselves, because then they would have to make a release for each platform, right? Being evil and the same version.
Right. I guess, yeah, because your coordinator's online, so that has a massive attack surface.
Yes, that's correct.
I don't know. It makes sense. It's a low cost. You have to make trade-offs if you want low cost, basically, is what it comes down to.
Exactly, right? I mean,
So it's what trade-offs do you make?
and remember, right? Like, in a year or two from now, maybe like Tap Signer is like, less than $10, right? So you can have a hardware wallet for less than $10. So it's like that's the path, right?
I will say, like, in multi-sig in general, it's nice that you do feel a bit of an extra safety, that it's like, okay, if I fuck up this one signer gets compromised, or I lose the backup or something like that, I don't lose everything. And the other devices need to be compromised too.
Yeah, I mean, multi-sig is amazing, right? It's just the reason why we often recommend people to use single sig plus strong passphrase for real money is because most people will screw themselves out of their coins before they're actually robbed by somebody, right? And having essentially a split secret, right? That's what passphrase plus single sig plus seed is very hard to screw up. Um, so especially if you have a backup of each. Now with multi-sig, it's a lot easier to screw up, and you're still now depending on multi-sig. You either have extreme sort of understanding of the stuff, and you're using, say, Electrum with multi-sig plus Sparrow. So like you're using multi-client multi-sig, right? Now you're really getting the benefit of multi-sig. If you're using single client multi-sig, the benefits of multi-sig start to diminish because now you're relying that the client is not lying to you in multiple platforms too, right? So it's not like a magical thing.
The desktop, the coordinator.
Yeah, so imagine for sake of argument that Nunchuk is evil, right? They could be releasing evil software in the three platforms, right? And then they could be doing a grifting attack or something like that because you're using the same software to validate the transaction, like before you sign it.
Well, you should validate on the device. Like that's the whole point of a screen on a hardware wall, right? Because you don't trust the coordinator.
Right, but not if the device does not have a secure element. So the problem with, say, Jade or Trezor is that it's very easy to put like fake software on it, right? Like some dummy software on it that's lying to you.
Right. That's why you want a screen and a secure element.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, remember, right, the secure element doesn't just protect your seed; it protects the firmware as well.
Right. The integrity of the device.
Exactly, it
How
does.
exactly does it protect the firmware? I used to know this. It like does it do a signature check when you try to update that file, the new firmware file?
I can speak in our case. I imagine the ledger guys probably do the same. Is that we check byte per byte of the firmware, right, in memory. So you'd become very obvious if there is a change to the firmware because you'll have a hash of it and you also check all the bytes, right?
Well, how would you check the bytes on a new firmware update that the old firmware doesn't know about yet?
So the secure element has a certificate, right, that checks the signature when it receives the firmware binary.
Yep.
So then it checks that, and then once you have it in memory, right, he always knows that the signature checks, but it also checks that the stuff that's actually running in memory is also the stuff that's supposed to be there.
Ah, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so the challenge when you don't have a secure element is that, like, if you can run any software you want, the user won't know, right? That maybe once they put their pin, they're actually unlocking their secret to a malicious firmware.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that like a Trezor does, like their official instructions don't have anything about GPG verification because I think the device itself checks the signatures when it's uploaded. It's just that the keys
That's correct.
that check that aren't stored in a secure element. That's the main difference, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So, a bad guy could go and replace that key,
Yeah.
like as easy as it would be to steal that seed to begin with, right?
Yeah.
In that specific device. If I remember right, Jade goes a bit further, right? Because they are using a server model to do some validation. But at the end of the day, I mean, if the client is weak, the client is weak, right? There's only so much you can do. And mind you, like, this is not to FUD any of these projects or like to FUD the stuff in general. It's just we're just sort of discussing, you know, like realistic attack surface that is not trivial to do, right? I mean, it is trivial to extract a seed from a Trezor, but it's not trivial to replace the signature on the device and load a new firmware that looks the same. Uh, it shouldn't be too hard, but I would say it's not trivial.
Hmm.
Do you know how the server validation works on Jade?
I looked into it, to be honest, like while back. I haven't looked in a while. They have some clever cryptography there, but you're still depending on the device, right?
And I guess that happens through Green Wallet.
Yes, it does. Actually, I don't I don't
I
know.
have no idea. I didn't even know was their configuration. I kind of vaguely recall that being the case, but I've never used it or anything.
I also think that there's a much smaller install base, so it's not as concerning. I don't think there's a lot of people using for a lot of Bitcoin. It's mostly like a liquid thing, so it's just different. The amount of eyes on it and all that stuff. They employ a lot of smart people too. Like cryptographically speaking, they have a lot of very very high quality cryptographers at Blockstream. So I don't think that would be the attack surface there. I think for them would be more like implementation on the hardware and just ESP32. It's a Swiss cheese. Man, I think we should rename this pod the bitching about wallets pod.
We join you every few weeks to bitch and also to be grateful.
I mean, the last one we didn't bitch this much, did we?
On to Embassy OS.
Yes.
Should we bitch about an operating system for a bit?
Ooh. All right. So Embassy OS 0.3.1.1. Loads of updates. I think it was Bitcoin Mechanic who gave us the update. Oh, Jesus Christ. It is a lot of updates. I'll start reading some and then I'll give up. Docker stats fix, update backend dependencies, fix receipts, health, return correct. Okay, guys, you guys really need to work on your.
Keep going. This is so entertaining.
I can't do this. It's too long. There's like 50. Like it's literally every commit. Too long. Is there a TLDR? Let's look at their website.
Well, it's not a major commit. There are how many decimal places here? 3 decimal places in this version
Yeah, no,
number?
it's not. Anyway, so yes, so Embassy OS had a lot of updates. You guys have any comments about Embassy OS?
I mean, it has a very wide scope. Like they have all kinds of stuff outside of Bitcoin. Stuff I never heard of. Burn after reading, share messages and files that are destroyed after they are viewed. All kinds of little things like this you never heard of. And even like, for example, after the what was the Ethereum thing that got sanctioned? Oh no, they're coming in for my studio here.
Tornado Cash.
Yeah, Tornado Cash. After that, they did a self-hosted Git service that they added. So they add all kinds of stuff to there, much more so than I think any other implementations tend to.
Yeah, no, it's it's like a big project. It seems.
Yeah, I mean, I've never used an Embassy, but everyone I've talked to that uses it really enjoys it. And I appreciate their goal, which is basically all the things that we currently use, like AWS and these big cloud providers for. Maybe we can host some of those at home in a relatively easy, convenient way.
Yeah, like they have a photo viewer. They really try to cover everything.
I don't even think they would consider it a Bitcoin project. Like Bitcoin supported on it,
No.
but it's really a sovereignty project.
Yeah, the like your own cloud. Like there was a term for this. Self cloud.
Self-hosting.
Cloud. No, but there was like, remember like when people started getting pissed at Dropbox and all this service, the photo sort of hosting software, somebody came up with a term for this stuff. Whatever. Let's call it own cloud. Own cloud. All right. Raspiblitz, introduction of web UI and API. Raspiblitz is an interesting project. It's fairly Bitcoin sort of focused.
Raspiblitz is 100% a Bitcoin project.
Yeah, they have CK Bunker.
Yeah, they support pretty much every good Bitcoin project that you want to use with your own node and that you want hosted 24/7, and you can run it relatively easily. Now it's interesting because Raspiblitz has always been extremely powerful. And I honestly think it's pretty convenient to use, but for their big differentiator, the reason all of a sudden all these other node projects started to be successful. You could think like Umbrel and MyNode. Um, they were becoming successful because they were more convenient to use than Raspiblitz, and that was because they had a web UI. And for a long time, um, the Raspiblitz guys did not want to. They said, if you can't figure out how to use our command line interface, then use a different project. But it looks like
I mean, technically, half of the, for half of the purposes people use these node in a box, honestly, they shouldn't be using them if they don't know what's going on under, especially with like auto updates and stuff for core, major attack surface there.
right.
But yeah, no, Raspiblitz, I guess, wins those users too.
Yeah, so they added a web UI. So this has been a long time coming, and very big release for them.
Very cool. Congrats, guys. It's a good project. All right, BDK 645 adds a way. Well, this is just a pull request. It's not a release yet, but adds a way to specify which taproot span paths to sign for. Previously, BDK would sign for a key path span if it was able. Plus, sign for any script path leaves it had the keys for. That doesn't sound right. Anyways, yeah, no, BDK it's interesting. It's a lot of effort going into it. It's a shame it's in Rust. Okay, I guess you guys don't have an opinion on that one.
I mean, I'm trying to figure out what it does. I think it's just trying to not sign sometimes. It's not trying to sign too much, like if there's hidden things in the Taproot, it's trying not to like leak them. Basically, that's what I'm guessing.
It could be. It also makes sense, right? Because with Taproot, you don't know what you don't know as part of the script, right? Because there's a bunch of other stuff that could be there that you don't know.
Yeah, there's more you can leak.
That's true. All right. It's nice to see Taproot sort of like moving in good Bitcoin fashion, like boring and sort of quietly moving a lot.
Have you used a Taproot address yet?
I know, you know me. I'm gonna be probably I'll die before I move to SegWit.
Have you used a SegWit address yet?
What's that?
Justin, I assume you have, right?
I have, but very little. Just actually BDK, because that was the first wallet that used it.
Yeah, I've used Taproot, but mostly just for hey, I made a transaction. But like, no.
I shared a link before this call about the transaction stats for Taproot, like what percentage of all UTXOs are Taproot. And this is BitMEX's thing; it's down right now, but it was like something like 0.06% of all transactions are Taproot right now. The UTXO set, so it's very minimally
0.06?
something like that, 0.6 or 0.06.
Yeah, we added to the show notes.
Yeah, it's crashed right now, so I can't see.
So generally speaking, when it comes to money, I am a huge fan of not changing anything unless you need the something that's gonna come from it. Like Taproot is amazing, very cool. Can't wait to have all kinds of cool stuff I can do with it. But I'm not gonna use it for real money, for real every day until there's a specific feature I want.
I'm on the same exact page there. 100% aligned.
Yep. I'm glad to hear it, Matt. It gives me confidence in your sats.
Do you use SegWit for hardware wallets? Because SegWit has some features that make it better on hardware wallets, right? Like they fix the sig hash so you can verify amounts and stuff. Like I guess that's something that you probably would.
Yep. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
Cold Card is SegWit by default.
SegWit is pretty battle tested at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And also another thing about SegWit too is for multi-sig, where you don't have to have an order for the signers.
Yeah.
While the legacy addresses you do, which is a huge deal when the widow of a programmer who overcomplicated the script hits our support.
Yeah.
So next is Kotlin Multiplatform Tor. Add store controller, support for map address and resolve, full change log there. Who was it who brought this up? Somebody did on the issues. Nice to see more Tor stuff happening. All right, guys. We're moving on to the noteworthy section of the show. New self-custody redundancy service, seed bank, upstart service for passphrase multi-sig users, act as an internet-connected location in the context of redundant seed backups. Seeds are sent obscured over multiple channels, stored offline, anonymous operators,
Wait, what is
synonymous
this? Is this like an
clients.
ad?
No, I mean that's their
It's a seed bank.
it's a seed bank, just like for cum
This is like a
rockets.
third-party service, right? It reads like an ad. For more information, email us here.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly.
Also, the website doesn't work.
It was working before when I checked.
You got to get rid of the www dot and then it works.
Okay. So,
Yeah, why are we talking about this? Did someone you know?
what? Yeah, listen,
find it?
it's a Bitcoin project. I mean, I'm gonna
It's on
cover
the
it.
list.
It's on
It's
the
on the
list,
list.
Matt.
How did it get on the list?
I can't remember. Point is, it's essentially a place for you to store your seed of a third party, which is kind of a terrible idea. But at the same time, it is kind of cool. If provided that encryption is strong enough, and you know the implementation of the encryption does not have
And
any,
the website works.
and the backdoor, there's no backdoors, there is no accidental bugs on the implementation of the encryption,
I could see it being useful for multi-sig.
and the website works.
Multi-sig reduces the trust significantly.
Yeah, I mean, personally, you probably want to encrypt before they encrypt.
Yeah, but then why are you even why not just encrypt it and put it in some kind of cloud or something?
Matt, this has the same vibes as, remember that project you had? Was it the
Yeah, final message.
final message in
Yeah.
a little bit? So it's like a way to store seeds. I always wanted to make a online lockbox,
Yeah.
right, for people. The problem is, unless you can prove that the stuff is not illegal stuff in the file, you could have spam takedown requests.
Right, that's why we made ours text only.
Yeah.
But I mean, when I was thinking about with final message, it was specifically for inheritance, where like some trade-offs have to be made for inheritance, and you have to be careful with those trade-offs because they can affect your security.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I mean, listen, I don't have something inherently against people storing encrypted stuff for
Is
you.
this for inheritance though? Is that what this?
No,
Because I don't want to go
I
to.
think it's just backup.
Honestly, I'm like a little bit sketched out by the description, and I have my VPN turned off because I wanted to have a good internet connection for this. So I don't want to go to the website with my VPN turned off. So I have no idea what the website looks like.
Oh, it was all over Twitter.
Is it primarily targeted at inheritance? Like, do they have a mechanism in there to send that piece of the multisig to someone after you die?
I didn't check that fully. No.
Because that's useful. Like I was hoping, the only reason I created Final Message because no one else did it. I needed that's the tool that could be very useful to me. If I could take a multisig, one signer in the multisig, and be able to pass that down to someone in a dead man switch kind of way.
I like the idea of having a encrypted lockbox on the internet that is available to you, but I don't see a safe way of making that project in a way that the founders don't go to jail or is just completely spammed out of existence with takedowns that you don't want to fight in court.
But if it's text, that's not the case.
Well, but then you can't really do text. It needs to be encrypted.
Yeah, but encrypted text.
No, you can't. But that then you can't prove that the data inside that is not something that shouldn't be there. See, what law enforcement is going to do is they're going to be dicks. They're going to go. They're going to get kind of pictures that gets people in jail, and then they're going to encrypt those pictures, right? And then they're going to put it on your website, and they're going to go to the judge and say, "Look, there is encrypted pictures of things that shouldn't be there."
But how do they put pictures in text?
Well, it's going to be binary, Matt. That's the encrypted data, unless you're using XOR or something else, and that would have to be a seed kind of thing.
But if there's just a text box on the website,
No, but it doesn't matter. I could get binary data or encoded base 58 or whatever, right? That looks like text, dump on an input box on your website and upload it.
but no, a character limit prevents that.
No, you can do base 58. So that's the characters that you would use for text.
You could get it that compact.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's how, for example, you put like say PNGs in a like on page on an HTML file. Anyways, point is, it's very easy to, yes, you can encode your binary data in whichever sort of format you want. Base 58 is an extremely common one because is a limited char set that looks exactly like text, so that there's no issues with the parsers. And then somebody can put that stuff in your website.
Noted.
Now, if you have normalized data, say, for example, seeds, you could come up with a spec that you can provably say that there is 12 words in there as opposed to encrypted pictures. Anyways, moving on from this one, it's a tricky one. It was all over Twitter. I figure I mention it. It's actually good that we discuss it in case somebody was thinking about putting their seed there. Foundry, the largest mining pool, provides grant to open source Stratum v2. That's great. We need Stratum 2 v2 to happen. It's about time.
This is particularly big because Foundry is the largest mining pool in the world, but also because so a major aspect of Stratum v2 is right now mining pool operators are able to, they're the ones who choose which transactions go into a block. They can obviously be coerced or forced to not include certain transactions, so they become a central point of failure. In the current setup, individual miners in that situation could leave and go to a different pool. They basically have like a soft veto there. But with Stratum v2, one of the implications of it, one of the main goals of it, is to make it so that the individual miners actually construct the blocks. So it takes that power away from the pool operator and gives it to all these individual miners that are much more distributed than the pool operators. Also notable here is Foundry fully KYCs all of their customers. So they're like particularly regulatory friendly pool. And they're funding something that defangs a lot of that regulation.
Yeah, no, I think any smart business that is not um, aligned with the state thinking, they're just following, the regulation that they have to so they don't get in trouble, sees that it's important to create the tools that makes regulation pointless, so then they can get out of it without having to fight it.
100%. But anyway, great to see. Shout out to the Foundry team on this one.
Yeah. This is, by the way, the realistic way of handling things, right? Like, it's kind of like the Tornado Cash sort of people sort of thinking that, Coinbase is going to fight, the US government and risk 30 years in prison for all the executives. It's completely ludicrous. It's completely unrealistic. Nobody's going to risk jail time because people want privacy. That's why the regulations are designed the way that they are, is to discourage large companies from supporting the privacy stuff. And it's designed very well. Like they're very good at making things awful to people. So the technology has to be inherently good at making regulation useless, not requiring some large entity to be benevolent.
No, I agree with you, MVK. Justin, we can hear you eating.
And laughing too.
No, I was laughing. I was laughing at Justin eating.
Oops. Small bite. Long podcast.
It is. Can't you stay 2 hours without eating?
Long list. Excuse me. Long list. The podcast is great. The list is long.
All right. Wait, why don't we talk about no.
No, let's talk about Tornado Cash. I'm curious in your opinion.
No, we will after.
Okay.
Yeah, because then there is like more than one story there. I'm gonna Matt, I only have so much capacity of reading text, Matt.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, you don't have to go so far deep into the show notes. I mean, everyone always makes fun of Marty.
The list.
Oh, we will. That's no. This is the whole point of this podcast. We're
Okay.
gonna excruciatingly argue each.
I guess now we're
tweet
on to
here.
like news items, right? Before they were like Bitcoin projects.
Yeah, that's called the news and noteworthy,
News and noteworthy. Okay.
or just noteworthy.
Why is Nix-Bitcoin in here then?
Because I don't know.
Shouldn't it be in the other section?
It totally should.
Okay, we'll read it.
I'm gonna blame the new producer.
Well, let me take this one. So Nix-Bitcoin is a little bit like what was the one we just talked to that just got the web UI? Raspiblitz. You know, it's a similar thing like that. It's more security focused, less moving parts. The interesting thing is like Nix is it's actually a distribution of Linux where you can have like one little config file that can completely define your operating system, and it can build an entire operating system from that. And so you can have all kinds of restrictions, like what users can see which folders and can make which network requests. You can really lock it down at the operating system level. And so Nix-Bitcoin is a config basically in Nix that can build up such an operating system just for running a Bitcoin node, Lightning node, and other things like that. So it's very security focused. And like, for example, Jonas Nick from Blockstream is one of the main people behind it. I think he was just basically building a node for himself, and Nix-Bitcoin is what it became. And so we're if anyone, I think probably some of our first production deployments will use this, just because we were using Nix for our developer environment in our build system currently, and so it's pretty easy to just integrate it with this. So it's a really interesting security focused like node in a box solution that's much more aimed at tinkerers.
There is one more super important thing about Nix is that they're very careful about dependencies management and reproducible builds, right? So they take a lot of extra effort to make sure that the dependencies are, let's call it this way, the supply chain of dependencies, that the dependency chain is way better managed and is sort of properly paid attention to. So you're not pulling some dependency that could be a non-revealed new version that has a hole in it or something like that. They're a lot more conservative about dependencies than your usual Linux.
Yeah, this is the whole point of the project. This is the reason it's different from other ones. Is that they model software is just a graph of dependencies, right? So for like Bitcoin Core, right? Like just on a very high level, right? Bitcoin Core is dependent on the GCC compiler because that's what's used to build the code. It's also dependent on SQLite, that's the database for files, and it's also dependent on LevelDB, that's the database for blocks. SQLite is for wallets, LevelDB is for blocks. So but this sort of graph can get much more granular because each one of these has dependencies. And so if you want a really deterministic build, you need like a modeling of all the dependencies. And so the really cool thing about Nix is that they took this, there's actually a fork of it called Geeks, which is used for Bitcoin Core's build system, which took this to the absolute extreme, where not only can you build, basically like if you use Ubuntu, you have to trust about 400 megabytes of trusted binaries. Like they're just blobs of computer programs that you can't really audit. They're outputs of compilers. But with Geeks, you can basically build all that from source in a 250 byte trusted binary. So like this is basically a really interesting way of making it so your reproducible build for a software project is like reproducibly correct. It's built from source code and not source code and a bunch of trusted binaries you can't audit. So yeah, it's really interesting for security.
Yep, but it's still not FreeBSD.
Nix-Bitcoin is a really, really, really cool project. And I mean, on the most basic level, it's just when we talk about that security versus convenience trade-off balance, they're all the way on the security side.
Yeah, they're extreme. It's hard to use. I've been struggling to figure out how to get a server running. So.
That's a good sign.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to have Nickler and the other lead maintainer on Dispatch, and it was a really great conversation. It was episode 42.
Yeah, they have a matrix room that's very helpful.
Yeah, Jonas is also the guy who did the half aggregation signatures. He's a real cryptographer.
He's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
It's another lizard-made project. He works for Blockstream. All right, signingdevices.com. Oh, that's mine. It's a website to remind everybody that hardware wallets are a stupid term for Bitcoin wallets. It should be signing devices for hardware. You can go there and check it out.
Now that was an ad.
No, not really. I was not the one who added there. I just made it sound like an ad.
Well, isn't signingdevices.com your website?
Yeah,
Oh, but you didn't.
but
Did you not approve the pull request?
of course not.
Okay, fair enough. I just wanted to say on the previous topic, you said it's another lizard creation. I mean, the Bitcoin space has I wonder how many people in the Bitcoin space recognize that comment.
No, I mean it was a joke because, see, for people that were not around the block wars,
Exactly.
a lot of people were saying that like me and other people who supported small blocks were people paid by Blockstream, which I'm not, and we were all dragons, and we were lizards. So the joke going forward always is, if you work for Blockstream, you're a lizard. It's so dumb.
Yeah, most people don't recognize that reference because we have so many new people now.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I'm glad we explained it.
Right. It's really dumb because all these projects are all open source and all verifiable, so it makes really no difference, even if it was evil. All right, Tornado Cash, GitHub taken down, lead developers accounts frozen, and in response to Tornado Cash, GitHub being taken down, Start9 added GTS service to the Embassy OS. Well, we can talk about all that together. So, for people that don't know, this Tornado Cash was a sort of like a quote unquote decentralized contract on Ethereum that provided reasonably good privacy, except that the way Ethereum works, it doesn't have UTXOs like coins, it has accounts, which is very dumb. So, anyone who received Tornado Cash token into their account, and all these accounts clearly monitored because within minutes everybody was being sort of like completely doxxed on Twitter, now has funds from a tool that is under sanctions, which is a very big deal in legal problems. So anyways, there's a lot of stuff going on here. I mean, of course, they should not take the code or the dev down because code is free speech. In some countries it's not. Maybe in Holland is not, where he is, and the reason why he was taken. My theory is, if this developer one was in communication with bad people, knowingly or unknowingly, they would use that against him. Ethereum people have a history of talking about DPRK somehow in North Korea. I think there was a guy that went there and got arrested on the way back.
Yeah, that was Virgil Griffith. Virgil went to
Yeah,
North Korea and gave a presentation on how to use Ethereum to circumvent sanctions and then got arrested.
very bright. Generally speaking, when it comes to privacy providing tools that are highly used by people who the state deem unliked, and is very very successful, the state doesn't care what is correct, what's not correct, what is truly illegal, what is not illegal. They will find a way to get these people, right? Because they are now people of interest. Remember that the state doesn't have to really follow the law when it comes to anything that they deem terrorism or whatever. They'll just come up with some bullshit reason. But there's also this other concept in law, which is profiting from proceeds of crime. So, say for example, somebody runs a coordinator for CoinJoin, and they are taking profit directly from the coin join of that specific transaction. And the state might see that as a problem, and they might try to frame it that way and go after the people. That's, in my view, how they will go after some of these people. Is that correct? Absolutely not. Is that fucked up? Yes, it is fucked up. But, you know, these are not the good guys, right? These are just assholes in suits. So, um, it's gonna get weird out there, especially for projects that are like meaningfully doing volume, right? These guys were doing quite a bit of volume. I'm sure Matt will have opinions.
It was 7 billion total volume they had done.
There you go. That's a bit of money.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken at length about this situation, and we have a lot more to cover, so I don't have that much more to add. But it was good to hear your opinion on the situation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sucks. It's like, it's one of those things that, like, I don't think the world should work this way, but it does. So our goal and our, like, we should strive to create tools that don't get the devs in jail. Because we don't put people in jail because people use the dollar for bad things. It's ridiculous. So unfortunately, there will be a learning curve for people, and you can't prevent, like, people will come up with alternative solutions, and it's going to be a cat and mouse game. If you're on the state side or on the freedom side, doesn't matter. It is what it is. I just hope that this guy has a good lawyer and he gets out, because it's fucking bullshit. It's just code.
Yeah, I mean, on the Tornado Cash specific side, I personally kind of feel like it's a very low lift fact finding kind of mission. So I mean, all the Treasury had to do is they basically just updated a blog post. They just copy and pasted the contract address into the OFAC list blog post, and then they just watch and they just watch to see what happens from there. And sure enough, most of these so-called DeFi services, they have very centralized front ends, and they like immediately started blocking accounts that have a shared history with that contract address. And the dusting aspect is really interesting because, as you said earlier, a bunch of celebrities and stuff were getting sent to their account this Tornado Cash, and there's no coin control in Ethereum, so you can't not spend it. So there's going to be all these things that get exposed because of this single change, which was put that contract address into that sanctions post. And it should be interesting to see how everything plays out. Personally, in America, code is speech, and speech is supposed to be a protected right. Unfortunately, we've learned we can't really rely on those legal protections. I mean, it's. I think we will look back, and it will be like the start of a very strong fight against financial privacy in the Bitcoin world. But we shall see. On the coordinator side, one thing that should be noted, I think, at least in terms of any kind of service that relies on a centralized coordinator, a big thing there is how hard is it to run a coordinator, self-host a coordinator through Tor. And I wonder if we will see alternative coordinators pop up that are not connected to known legal identities.
Matt, I think what the state just did with this Tornado Cash thing is piss off a fuck ton of devs. And if there is one thing you don't want, is to piss off a ton of fucking devs.
Very true.
Seriously, it's like, as much as we get some Schroeder-Freud Ethereum design choices, like, I think we get more pissed at the state sort of going boot after these people, right? So I think there will be a lot of new tools coming out that will be substantially better, trying to cover exactly whichever attack scenarios, legal or technical, were used after these guys.
Yeah. I mean, basically, like the best thing they could have done to neuter these systems is they've been doing nothing for so long that a lot of these projects are built in a completely non-adversarial environment. So if there's an adversarial environment, all of a sudden
Exactly.
things get hardened, right? More robust, and the end result is stronger tools.
It's like it always goes back to the PGP fight back in the day. If you want to classify encryption as munition, which is like one of the most strict ways of classifying something, it's like this is like literally the worst thing the state can try to do is classify something as a weapon of war, to prevent citizens from doing anything and having zero legal recourse. And look how that turned out, right? And then look at the war on drugs and look how that turned out. So, we're fortunate to live in a time where the only nuclear option a state has is to turn off everything, which they can't because everybody goes broke, right? So, if they have any tap open, everything else leaks through. So, best of luck, and I really hope that some of these people that work in this entities, find a better thing to do with their lives than to make people's lives miserable. Anyways, all right. Next is let's talk about the two disclosures at the same time, because why not? Swan email provider leaked data, which is Swan's data, and Casa discloses also a data breach of the Casa store. You know, it's a tricky one because, you know, realistically speaking, nobody can run an email server anymore. You get immediately flagged as spam by all the big email providers. So that boat has sailed. Um, and, you know, this third party email providers were not designed to have the level of security required to hold Bitcoiners' information private. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when email providers will will screw up. Now, that doesn't mean you can't do something about it, like for example delete information. You can't guarantee that these email providers will delete their logs and do that, all that stuff. So for email's sake, please use an email that is not your email. Like for example me, from way back in the day, you'd have like your name, full name kind of thing in Gmail or something like that, right? Don't use those emails. I don't use mine of those anymore. So maybe use burner emails to order things from Bitcoin companies. And then for the Casa leak, I didn't see full information on that. I don't know if this was a storefront that they were running internally, if it was third party. Do you guys know if this was internal or external breach?
We're talking about Casa.
Yep.
I'm not sure.
Casa was using a third-party merchant vendor, and it was for their store. So it was if you bought like additional hardware wallets or Faraday bags,
Right.
or seed plates, you would get them from that store. So technically, not all their users, but you have to, or the nodes that they sold. So technically, not all their customers, but probably a large portion of their customers, and then
All the
even
Bitcoiners bought the node.
and yeah, a shit ton of people that aren't their customers that just bought the nodes, right? They probably have more people buy the nodes than use the multisig. Maybe I'm talking out of my ass, but I remember a lot of people bought those nodes when they still had them out.
You know, eventually our store is also going to get hacked at some point, but we keep it in house for a reason, because you can't trust the store providers to defend Bitcoiner information.
Trusted third parties are security holes.
Yep. And another thing too is that when we delete the data internally, we actually delete the data. We know that the data was deleted. You shouldn't trust us, but this is not about you. It's about us knowing that we deleted the data.
Right, you don't have to trust a third party. Like, CoinKite doesn't have to trust a third party with it. Like,
Exactly.
when people say trusted third parties are security holes, like, sometimes you have to use a trusted third party, but you wanna use a trusted third party that's not using another trusted third party, who's then using another trusted third party. It's like trusted third parties all the way fucking down.
That's all how it works, right? So, but another challenge is, for example, shipping companies, right? Like your information, in order to ship to you, has to be sent to a shipping company, and a company that calculates shipping costs and shit. So, shipping to a PO box really is the ultimate realistic solution. Everybody should have a PO box somewhere where they ship stuff to, because listen, the state is going to find out where you are, right? Because you can't even get a shipping PO box without your ID being photocopied. But
It's like full KYC to get one of those. Yeah.
yeah, but at least bad guys won't, right? So that's one nice thing. Phone numbers is trickier. Sure, there's a few solutions.
No, use burner numbers. If the state's not in the threat model, then you can use one of those apps like MySudo or Hushed. Use burner emails. If the state's not in the issue, then you can use like the different aliases these services offer. Like Proton offers it, Tutanota offers it. These things reduce your attack surface. Obviously, use companies that you believe are taking your privacy and your security seriously. But one thing, NVK, at Bitcoin Park, that's one of the key features one of the key benefits we're offering our members is that they can get things shipped to the park.
Nice.
And also, we're just going to have like a merch store. Like, we just want to have like cold cards and block clocks and stuff for people to buy there.
That's pretty cool. I mean, having locations. See, there's a couple things going on there, but like, you don't want to have a seal of approval on a reseller, right? Because that's a security hole. What you want to have is local webs of trust. So there's a few guys who that based on the security threat model of their hardware wallet, you know, those guys are probably trusted to buy the wallet for you because you trust them,
Right.
right? Not because they're being certified, kind of thing.
Right. It's trade offs.
Because that's stupid. That just gives false sense of security. Exactly. That's pretty cool. And another thing too is that, like, if you're a company out there who wants to sell stuff online, please don't use Shopify. Please don't use WooCommerce PHP crap. It doesn't matter that you're hosting the PHP stack. It's still a PHP stack store, not designed to be safe, right? There is a lot of LARPing out there um, about stores, and remember, right? Like, it seems to be that the marketing and commercial tools are always how most Bitcoin companies get owned, right? Remember, the Ledger guys was not like them or their store themselves. It was the CRM tool that was feeding from the
The
store,
marketing
right?
list. Yeah, it was a fucking marketing list.
Yeah,
I feel like this happens like every fucking week now. It's already like
exactly. Well, the problem is this, right? Companies want to sell. Okay, having a CRM tool, right? Having some analytics on your sales and your customers and knowing a bit of your customers is a huge advantage in sales. It really is, right? The question for companies that we asked ourselves was, in our case, for example, what's worse? And this is like pure selfish question, right? What's worst? The cost of not having new customers because we lost the data, or being able to cater sales to people using a CRM in terms of sales gains. I mean, like, we, in our opinion, feel like having the bad news of being hacked and losing all that information is not gonna is gonna be worse for sales than having advanced sales capabilities. It's a business question. Like, forget about the morals of this for a second. I think it's a much better way of looking at it. So
No, yeah, 100%.
stop marketing to people.
I'm not making a plea based on morals or ethics. I'm saying
Mhm.
that if you care about your business, then get your shit in order, or you're not going to last very long in this space because it's fucking ridiculous. And I would say, and I've already said this publicly, but I will reiterate it, that specifically on the Casa side, you know, I have a lot of respect for that team, but I was really disappointed because the thing is, first of all, it's one thing if you get owned. If you get owned, you need to be transparent and you have to learn from your mistakes. And with this particular breach, their public release didn't say what information was leaked. You had to go and search for it. Like they had emailed people what had actually been leaked, but they're public release didn't say that. And I feel like that's kind of some bullshit.
I don't necessarily
They
have
were
a
publicly downplaying it. Like the leaked data was names, emails, phone numbers, shipping and billing addresses, and the products ordered. It was basically as owned as you could get.
no. Personally, I just want to make sure at least the people who got owned got informed that they got owned. How people handle their PR, there's nice ways, there's bad ways, but like it's debatable. Um, but I just at least I'm happy to hear that they informed each. They're a responsible actor, right? Like they're not a bad actor in Bitcoin. So and there's good people there. So like I'm just happy to know that they informed each customer about what got owned. I just wish they didn't keep that data because they don't sell nodes anymore. Just delete the data.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because they've gone to such lengths to not KYC people for their multi-sig service, right? Like has been a big
Hmm.
selling point of theirs for a long time, is that they don't do any KYC. You can use a NEM, and yeah, to leak addresses is you know is pretty bad if that's what like a core thing your business is trying to do.
It's maintaining anything that's online secure is not easy. Um, assume you will get owned. I mean, we know eventually our store is gonna get hacked, right? It's like how can I minimize the amount of data that's there? All right, ETH versus BTC differences in capturable attack surface. That's a whole different rabbit hole. That was there because the list was not this big yet when it was added there. But I guess I just need to comment a little bit on this just because it's such a fucking mess out there. You can't compare the two. Okay, Bitcoin was designed for the worst case scenario. It's you know, it's designed for a battlefield. It's the Byzantine general's problem. How do you trust a message to get to the other side? And Ethereum literally made all the bad trade-offs so that it can have, high yield smart contracts. And like it drives me insane to see all these people arguing as if there is anything to be argued in any sort of comparable footing. I assume that you, if you're tired of that subject.
No, wait, was that you went back to Tornado Cash? Is that what just happened?
No, just ETH versus BTC in general, because the merge.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is one of those things, right? It's if you're trying to build an open global financial network, you need a really stable foundation, and you need that foundation to be as censorship resistant and robust as possible. And so, Bitcoin development has prioritized that since the beginning, and Ethereum has done pretty much the exact opposite. And that doesn't become obvious right away. So now it's going to start to become obvious, and that's really the situation right now.
But see, Ben, what drives me nuts is Bitcoiners arguing with Ethereum people on Twitter as if there was anything to argue about on the same footing. It's like trying to compare water and oil, right? It's like it's two different things.
Yeah, there's no need to debate. It's all becoming quite obvious on its own.
Yeah, and the shitcoiners, the Ethereum heads, of course they want to send back Bitcoin and try to drag Bitcoin in because it's always been what they've done, right? They want to sort of use Bitcoin and sort of like strawman Bitcoin because it makes their case don't look as bad. But it's going to be a lot of fun to watch that project fail.
I mean, I think capture is almost the plan at this point, right? Like Lubin came out recently with a big proposal through I think it was like an article he wrote through the Ethereum Foundation explaining how you do a CBDC on Ethereum, right? So it's like I think capture is almost the goal to get another pump or two out of Ethereum, right?
It was always the plan. It was always what was going to happen.
I mean, it was design. It's pumponomics,
Yeah. Yep.
right? I mean, like Ethereum is essentially a factory of Ponzi's,
Mm-hmm.
which is a shame, right? Because there is interesting stuff you could build on that platform, knowing that that platform could be fully captured. It's just what pisses me off, I guess, is that they pretend that it isn't. Right? They pretend it's decentralized. They pretend all this stuff, but it really is AWS, right? Everything is running on Amazon. Nobody can run a node. Nobody can verify anything. It's not ultrasound money. It's not a world computer. It's none of the crap that they sell as. It really is the false marketing and Bitcoin affinity scamming that pisses me off, I guess. You can see I am very passionate about the topic. All right, this one is Matt related here. OpenSats launches legal defense fund. It aims to defend open source Bitcoin contributors from lawsuit regarding their activities in Bitcoin and free open source ecosystems by directing donations to the fund to fund legal fees related to the contributions. That's pretty cool. I think Square or Jack also launched some defense fund as well. I think Bitcoiners should fight hard and with all the money.
Right. So Dorsey and some others launched a defense fund for developers facing lawsuits. We had Hodlnot reach out to us a couple of months ago. He has immense legal burden. He's a very humble dude. We basically had to push it out of him to ask for help, and he's inundated in legal fees right now over a tweet he made about CSW. So none of the existing avenues were. He didn't have any help any other way. So we worked with him and some other partners to set up this fundraiser, and alongside the fundraiser, we set up this fund where the funds are getting directed to.
That's great.
So we have our general fund. Our general fund is mandated to support open source projects. People can apply for grants, whatnot, tax deductible. Then we have this legal defense fund, also tax deductible, or you can donate anonymously, whichever way you prefer, Bitcoin or credit cards. And this mandate is much broader, right? This mandate is legal fees, defensive legal fees, in free speech cases that are of open source contributors. But when we say open source contributors, we don't just mean developers. So Hodlnot will be a recipient of some of the funds, but also hopefully we raise excess of that, and it can be used for others as well.
So correct me if I'm wrong. So people can have peace of mind knowing that if there is like extra money that's donated that's unneeded to the legal fees, they will just go to a fund for further legal defenses.
Correct. And all the funds at OpenSats period are held in Bitcoin. So if you believe that Bitcoin will increase in price, then we're holding our funds in the hardest money possible. So even if you donate via credit card, Ledger has basically stepped up to, and they donate the processing fee for our credit cards, and then OKCoin has agreed to convert it for us free of charge. So if you donate via credit card, it's immediately without fees converted into Bitcoin and held as Bitcoin.
That's pretty awesome. So for people that don't know, when you have assholes who have very deep pockets to sue people, what they do is, aside from the fact that like normal litigation is extremely expensive already, right? Like it's always a few $100,000. What they would do though is they'll go crazy on discovery and all kinds of other aspects of the litigation, so that their goal is to suck you dry, so that you cannot fight anymore and you settle, or you withdraw, right? So that's what that fraudster is doing, is he's trying to suck people dry of their legal fund capacity, and that's terrible because that sets precedents. And then next time a judge goes in the same jurisdiction, or even sort of any common law jurisdiction, really, people will cite that case saying, hey, there is enough people who agree that CSW is Satoshi, just because they withdraw their case, right? And it's a terrible thing. So the more people that fight this guy, the better. Uh, boy. Anyways, good for you, Matt, for putting this together. That's pretty awesome.
Cheers. Hodlnaut's a real one, and I'm just grateful. There was a lot of people involved, and yeah, it came together pretty quickly. It was pretty cool to watch unfold. But we're gonna have we're doing a 12-hour telethon. So first of all, defendingbtc.com if you want to donate. Every sat matters. The legal fees just for Hodlnaut alone are significantly high. They're very high. They're in the millions. And yeah, so the more the better.
Well, but the good thing is keep on donating because it's still gonna go to your defense fund.
Correct. Exactly.
It doesn't matter how little or how much there is there. Just keep on donating because it will go still towards
Right.
people who will have to be defended in the future.
And if you or your company are sitting on large amounts of gains and you're in the US or a partner country, we do have tax deductible donations. So consider that instead of sending it to the state, send it to our defense fund or general fund.
Yeah, you should get set up as a tax deductible entity here in Canada too.
I think there's some reciprocation, isn't there?
It's not that simple.
Yeah.
It's not all kinds of tax deductible. Anyways, just saying because there's a lot of Bitcoin entities here.
We'll look into that. But my understanding is some countries have reciprocation. And then the second thing is
Yes.
we're going to be doing a 12-hour telethon live from Austin on Friday during BitBlock Boom. So join us for that. That should be a good time. There's going to be art. There's going to be auctioned. Different collectibles and stuff like that will be auctioned. We're doing a limited edition block clock courtesy of NVK and CoinKite. So it'll be a fun time. Hopefully we'll raise a bunch of money. So defendingbtc.com.
Are you going to be able to take the orange one there for the demo?
I am not.
Till we have the other orange one to send out?
I am not because I'm on the road, but we have a shitty picture of it that we will show people. But just know to anyone listening,
That's great.
For my wedding, NVK gave me a limited edition orange block clock, and the only one that's not in his hands is currently in my hands, but there's going to be another one that's going to be available for during this telethon. So if you're interested in that, consider joining us and bidding up that auction.
Yeah, no, it's I hope it raises a lot. All right. Oh, this one is cool. Replicant reproducing a fault injection attack on Trezor. So this is the old Trezor 1 attack. It's just fun to see when other people go and reproduce this attack by themselves. And I don't know if I ever heard in a podcast anybody talk about it like in a way that they sort of explain how this is done. And I figured I'd bring it up. So this was Trezor 1, but was it already when Trezor T was already around or not? I can't remember. So essentially what this attack does is it glitches essentially when you have a chip that is not designed to monitor voltage for security purposes. What it does is, say for example, you have the chip saying, hey, is this pin correct, is this pin correct, is this pin correct, and then the response is not correct, not correct after the user puts it in. Imagine that sort of like as voltage, right? Now essentially what this attack does is when I'm responding not correct, it goes zzz, it zaps the chip at that exact right moment so that the chip doesn't hear not correct. But because it's not designed for security, it also doesn't hear is correct either. So it just assumes is correct, and then it's bound, its own, right? So the reason why I brought this article up is because it's a great explanation of the attack. It's very fun for people to understand how this attack is done and understand how chips work, especially non-secure chips work. Anyways, it's a very good article. with a very accessible sort of like level of information. It's not like a paper.
How much do you think this attack costs to replicate?
This guy used fancy stuff, but you can do like $20 worth of parts.
That's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's see, this is the thing, right? I think we will be in the very near future, we're gonna be at a point where when you go through an airport, the same way they can plug your iPhone or Android to a little machine that can essentially own the device, copy its memory, even if it's fully encrypted. He either knows e- essentially all phones are backdoored, right? Doesn't matter how fancy your distro is. The difference is some of them may achieve a level of encryption on the OS that's like acceptable or breakable later. So there's this black boxes made by security firms for airports where they plug your phone in when they take it from you, and then they copy everything. They can either break it there or they can break it later. I think we're going to arrive at a point soon where state actors and bad guys will have like little black boxes so that they don't have to have the technical know how to do any of these attacks. They just plug the device or stick the device into these machines that take the seed out, essentially, right? This is what they're achieving with this thing. I think we'll be at that space soon. So that's why it's so important to have strong passphrases, to have physically secured hardware, multi-sig, and sort of upgrade your security, because it might already be out there. It's just we won't know until we know. Very, very nicely done by this the security researcher.
Yeah, I've been expecting that for a while. Surprisingly, to this point, I have not. I tend to like to travel with empty signers just to see if, like, when they pay attention.
Hmm.
Um, the most recent time was I was going to Norway, and I was carrying a couple empty MK4s, Sats cards, tap signers, and open dimes because I wanted to show the activists your complete line of products. No, because I wanted to show the activists like all these different form factors you could use for holding Bitcoin. And we're connecting through Heathrow in London, and we have to go through a separate security because I was a fucking idiot and I forgot the UK wasn't in the EU, so I had to go through customs twice. But that's besides the point. I went through a security there, and they pulled me over to the side and they opened up my bag directly to where the signers were, and the signers were just in this mesh compartment wide out in the open. I was like, it's finally going to happen. And then he grabbed my like bathroom bag and pulled out a conditioner and told me the conditioner was too large and then sent me on.
Do you use conditioner, Matt?
I don't know, whatever it was like conditioner or shampoo or some
I
shit.
think that's the egregious part here.
Yeah.
For the mustache.
Oh, it's for the mustache.
Only for the mustache.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I like conditioners. Like my hair is long. Like you need conditioner, otherwise it tangles up.
Rodolfo, this might be a tech tip. Travel with an empty hardware wallet.
Right. That's right. I mean, at least have a brick me pin set up. That's you know. So here, sir, I'm just gonna put the pin on, and oh, it doesn't work.
You know what I don't like about the brick me pin? You can't test it.
That's kind of by design.
I had to kill a device to test it. Also, I have a device.
Don't trust, verify.
I have a cold card with a ticker on it that's like the countdown timer or whatever. It's like a year or some shit.
28
And
days.
I didn't realize it has to stay plugged in.
Yes.
Like I don't have the self control to keep a device plugged in that long, so it might as well be brick too. I just got rid of it.
No, just leave it on. It's fun. You just plug it to a USB and leave it running for 28 days.
I got like 14 days once, and there was a power surge, and then
So worked as designed. That's really what you're saying.
I've just a heads up. Like if you're gonna pick a big countdown timer, don't try and test it.
Somebody did it. Somebody did the 28 days once and posted on Twitter.
Is 28 days the largest one?
Yeah, I call it 28 days later in regards to the movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
All right. So Square wallet thing, they keep on making posts, which is interesting. This latest one was about seeds and things. Again, it's kind of annoying me because it's the seed hating thing. Seeds are great. No? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think if you're going to self custody, you should probably do it the way that other people. You should kind of do the best practice thing that has worked for a lot of people for a long time.
I kind of like where they're going with this, with the caveat that I just think more options are good and people should try different trade-off models. Like, I feel like we're still pretty early in the Bitcoin game, and we shouldn't just like lock ourselves into how we've always done it.
No,
Or
in that sense, I agree.
in this particular model, they make some interesting trade-offs that you don't really have. First of all, you have this hardware signer that's presumably extremely cheap. It's a blind signer. In an average day-to-day usage, the person will never use it. Things will get signed by their servers, will get signed by the third-party servers. And if the third party acts up and the third party's not letting you get your funds, then you use the blind signer and you pull your funds off.
But see, why even bother with the signer then? Just have a piece of paper that you write down whatever secret that signer is going to have if it's just a backup.
Because you're assuming the user can't keep track of something like that.
Yeah, but then they're going to lose the device.
You give them a little fob and they can just tap it on the back of the phone. Easy peasy.
I don't know. Because I think they're putting a screen on it or at least a button or something, right? And that might be a battery. I don't know. I want to see it. I welcome new different things. I just wish there was more intent and interest in human readable backup solutions. Maybe it's just I'm jaded because I've seen so many people lose so much money through the years too, right? So maybe it's part of that, including myself. Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see. It's just I don't know. It's just every time I hear no seed, I sort of balk a bit. We made kind of trade-offs to top signer too, right? There is no seed because the device is too dumb, cannot handle BIP39. So the backup, it's essentially automatic. When you set up the device, say with Nunchuk or whatever, it offers you for you to back up the encrypted file into your phone cloud shit. But the keys for that are lasered etched on the card so that the digital wallet cannot see the backup. It's fairly strong encryption too. But then the problem now that I see is collusion between two server entities offering you the signing part, right? But I guess for small amounts, it doesn't matter. The reputation of these companies is more important. So even if they get hacked and start signing people's funds, they'll probably make everybody whole. It would be in their interest. Yeah, it's an interesting solution. All right, Justin, I think this one was from you. A new way to do DLCs. Go for it.
Yeah, so DLCs are a way to bet on an outcome, and the cool thing is all you need is an oracle, someone attesting to outcome, like who won the Super Bowl. And the cool thing is that the people making the bet don't the oracle that's attesting to the outcome doesn't need to know about who is participating in the bet, and it's all based on Bitcoin and doesn't require any changes to Bitcoin. Some of the downsides to it are that no one uses it. There's no liquidity yet. It's still hard to trade these DLCs, and also you need to you can only bet on things that Oracle's broadcast outcomes for. So like you can't make your own custom contract and write a Python script or something and make a bet on what the outcome of the script is going to be in 2 weeks. And so the cool thing about this is that it's changing the signature algorithm underneath. It would basically allow you to run the DLC protocol on any sort of outcome. So like anything that you could express in software, you could write like a little smart contract, but here the smart contract could just be literally a Python script. And you and your counterparty would agree to run this at a certain point. And only if you disagree would you have to give this off to the DLC. So it's kind of interesting because it could potentially do some of the accomplish some of the goals with these smart contracting systems, but blockchain systems, but it doesn't resemble them at all. It's just a totally Bitcoin based, Bitcoin signature based protocol that doesn't have a blockchain at all. So it's pretty interesting.
Where do you run the scripts?
You could just run it anywhere. It's this is just like an example of an outcome. So you could, I forget exactly how you do this, but it's just like outside of the protocol.
Yeah. So let's say I have like a dice protocol, a dice script, right?
Yeah,
And my contract says that it needs to be like a minimum of 6, right, for this funds to be released or something.
yeah.
Does How does my contract validates that this was actually dice as opposed to me just feeding in 6?
Yeah, so I think here it wouldn't it you'd be basically trusting the oracle. So it's like observable things. So dice wouldn't be a good example because that's not really like
Hmm.
a thing that multiple parties could all observe unless they were all in the same place. But like just for example, if you wanted to make bets on some very specific thing, like which basketball player gets a technical foul in the second quarter. There's no oracle that's attesting to that currently, but you could write a little script that could do an API call to ESPN or something, and you could make bets on this. So it could potentially make make DLCs work for more types of events, and that might lead to more liquidity, which then would make DLCs useful in the real world because currently they're not because there isn't enough liquidity.
Very cool.
And it also simplifies the protocol a little bit too, I think, potentially. So yeah, just a cool, interesting thing that, yeah, it's, maybe in a couple of years this will actually exist.
Part of the reason why I wanted to start this pod is because I hear shitcoiners saying that nothing gets built on Bitcoin, right? So just mentioning and bringing up all these little things that are being created, maybe somebody else hears it, and that's exactly the thing that they were looking for, and some people go build a company on it. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, this one's really interesting because the main guy, I mean, there's like 8 people on this paper, but the main one, the one that I know, Lloyd Fournier, I don't know how you say his name. He's just been grinding away trying to do these kind of crazy applied cryptographic ideas on Bitcoin for like 2 or 3 years. He's sponsored by Spiral and did some other stuff. And so this is, to me, is like the first really big thing he's produced. It's super interesting.
Very
So
cool.
yeah, sometimes it takes a long time as well to actually produce something.
Oh, you mean good technology is not just like something you come up in a hackathon and it's done, and you go fundraising?
Correct. Correct.
That's good to know. It's very validating.
Correct.
All right. There is this BIP proposal, receiving a change derivation path in a single descriptor. That's very useful.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous if you're doing a descriptor wallet. Like a descriptor, the idea of a descriptor is it's supposed to describe the scripts in your wallet, right? It sounds very simple, but in practice,
It's not.
every wallet has receive and change addresses. So you can't one descriptor doesn't actually even describe a wallet until this BIP. You'd always need 2 descriptors, which is kind of stupid. So with this one, we'll finally be able to have one descriptor describe the average BIP32 wallet.
It's kind of funny, right? Because the original proposal for descriptors were to resolve this problem by having a single descriptor, and yet it didn't.
Yeah, but it was never a single. Yeah, it was always 2. Exactly.
No, this is great. It's nice to see movement on this. This is the kind of stuff that we would definitely support on Code Card Fest. Nice. All right, so Taproot Adoption. There is a link here for people to go check it out. But I don't think it was down. It's still down. But
It's down, yeah. It's BitMEX's thing. They're down.
it'll be on the show notes. People can check out later.
It's up and to the right,
Yeah.
but very small numbers.
Yeah, no, I mean it is gonna take a long time because there is no need for it for the majority of the users, right? Bitcoin, it's serving its purpose very well with the very little it offers, which is a lot. All right. Yeah, I mean, guys, if there are other links of projects and things that you want listed that we didn't talk about, feel free to add to the show notes because people will look at it and click and read at their own time after no longer bothering their ears. Okay, so there's a new section of the show now we're testing out, and we're gonna check the analytics to make sure that people really got to this part. Otherwise, we'll kill it, of course. So this one is the this one is the tech tip of the day.
By the way, MBK, multiple people this week told me they listened to the show. Multiple, like 3 or 4. Can you believe that?
I also had a handful reach out to me about it.
Yeah.
Okay, it must be the grace of Matt's mustache and Justin's mullet. I cannot think of any other reason.
And the list.
All right. So the tech tip. Okay. So you know you should have Tor running on your computer by default as a daemon, not per application, because that's silly and you end up with multiple instances and it's just stupid. So if you're on a Mac, which majority of sane people are, um, you can use brew to install Tor. So you do brew install Tor, and then there's this new feature from brew that's been around for a couple years now at least, called services. So you go brew services start Tor, and then you can actually check which brew services are running, and you go brew services list, and it's going to list which services are running. What's nice about this is that for people that use brew already probably know is that Brew is a much more sane package manager for OS X. It keeps everything tidy and it's nice and clean and simple, so it's easier to audit some of the stuff. And now you have Tor running on your computer. So you go on your Electrum or whatever, and you essentially just put all the services that you can and you should to proxy over Tor. If they don't have onion addresses to reach out to begin with. So on the proxy, you just go 127.0.0.1, which is localhost, and the port is 9050. The all the that four-step process is on the show notes. So I wanted to get something a tech tip that the two of you maybe take for granted but could be useful to somebody out there. Is there anything like that you guys have?
One of my favorite ones every time I get a Mac. This is very minute, but I love to change the key repeat rate. Make the
Yes.
key so like you hold down a key and it goes faster. There's a way you can Google that. There's a way to do that, and it's really a life changer. You hold down the key and you can move much faster.
You can make it like lightning fast. The key repeat and the gap to repeat.
Yes.
So the hold down to repeat. So how long it takes to start repeating, you can also change that. That's like a huge deal. Justin, do you want to find the two commands? It's like two global variables in the OS X that you can change. We can add to the show notes too.
I'll add that to the show notes.
Thank you. That's a great one. I'm setting up a new Mac a few days ago, and that's definitely one that I did on the first day of setting up the new Mac. Matt, do you have anything for us?
If the bandwidth constraints and latency of Tor got you down, you can get a hosted VPN account with Mulvad using Lightning at vpn.sovereign.engineering. Fantastic little
Really?
service offered by, I think Carl Dong offers that.
So Lightning VPN.
He has some kind of gift card relationship with them, so he just accepts the Lightning and then immediately credits your account. And if you don't have an account, he'll give you a new account, so you don't need an email or a password or anything like that. It just gives you this number code that you put in to either the Mulvad apps, or you can use it with OpenVPN. It's a fantastic little service.
On the privacy helm there, I know you have some suggestions for like throwaway phone numbers and those providers. If you want to add to the show notes, some of those providers will be very helpful, because when you Google those, it's a lot of shit scamming options out there. It would be nice to have a few that sort of like are recommended.
Yeah, I'll mention that right now just real quickly. There's textverified.com. You can pay with Bitcoin. Those are single-use numbers, so it's only at the time of verification, but they work really well for services that need verification, because a lot of times they have blacklisted numbers, but TextVerified doesn't. So you can use it with Twitter. You can use it with different services like that. Bitcoin ATMs. They support a bunch of different brands of Bitcoin ATMs. So that's textverified.com. Then you have silent.link, which provides you a full eSIM for Bitcoin. So a lot of the new phones now, you can just download an eSIM from the internet rather than use a SIM card. So they'll give you a fully functioning SIM card virtually with data and everything. That's also payable in Bitcoin. And then if your threat model is lower and you just want to make sure when you go and buy something from a store or something like that, they don't have the same phone number that you always use. There's apps in both app stores. The two big ones that I've used and recommend is MySudo, MySudo, and Hushed, Hushed. And both of those, like, you just download them from the App Store. If you have like an iPhone or whatever, like your credit card set up to it, you can literally just purchase it in the app. It's really cheap. You can get a number for a year for like $40. And you can just end up with like hundreds of numbers for $40 each a year, or you can buy them for 30 days or even cheaper, and just never put the same number in ever again.
I wonder how many of those numbers that get reused eventually. You keep on getting text messages from like weird services from other people.
Oh, they're so reused. Like I get sent money on like it's like someone's trying to send me money on Cash App on one of my numbers, and they're asking why I haven't paid my rent. And
That's funny. That's really funny. And I could totally see it. I bought another number from a different town, and the guy clearly owed money. So like every single tax collection service out there calls that number. Is really annoying. And I have it forwarded, so I don't necessarily know that was trying to call that number. So I'm often like, what are you talking about? Oh, right. And then I have to explain to them. Guys, do you have anything else that we may have missed on the list? Because it would be at least another couple weeks before we record again, if you guys come on again. So now would be a good time to mention it.
I believe the list was comprehensive on my side.
That's good.
no, I mean, I think this was a great conversation. It's always a pleasure having you and Justin on to join me.
Hey, Matt, it was very nice having you as a guest. And Justin, maybe I'll promote him to co-host just to piss off Matt. Matt has too many engagements. He cannot co-host anything else anymore.
Yeah, he was holding us hostage for the better part of a day.
There is that too. Totally calendar Cinderella there.
Yeah.
It was a family emergency. Thank you very much.
In all seriousness, I really appreciate you guys joining me on this. It's very helpful, and it's very pleasant, and it's fun. Thanks to our new producer, Joni. He's been super helpful too. And I hope Johnny doesn't have too hard of a time adding more to this list from all the extra crap that we talked about. And now we have recorded exits, so I don't even have to say the closing anymore. I do recommend people go check out the show notes, not on the podcast apps, because those only have 4,000 character max. And we already have 160 lines on GitHub for this episode, and we were sort of cutting it down. So this is a lot of fun. It's nice to talk about all the stuff that's going on in Bitcoin. And with that, I guess we can say our goodbyes here.
Cheers. Always a pleasure.
See you next time.
Take care, guys. Thanks for listening and going through another boring list of updates once again. Don't forget to get in touch on Twitter at Bitcoin Review HQ, or the Telegram Bitcoin Review Pod, or email bitcoinreview@coinkite.com. Remember, I don't have a crystal ball, so if you have a cool project you're working on, do make sure to get in touch with us. And if you're still not bored, you can follow me on Twitter at NVK.